to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theaters. Every day, people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a nonprofit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication, and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers, and the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 4th annual TEDxIEMadrid. Many people don't know this, but TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. Ideas worth spreading. This started back in 1984 and only became an annual conference back in 1990. And since then, it's grown into the global juggernaut it is today.
This TEDx event is organized by the curious individuals of IE Business School, where the ethos of the TED brand is to discuss ideas and spark conversations within our communities. Today's discussion is Recvolution. Is the future of humanity still human? So as speakers, hosts, and you, the audience, today we invite you to be a part of that discussion.
TEDxIEMadrid has grown from strength to strength in the last 4 years. Today, it boasts more than 100,000 views. We've hosted 25 guest speakers and over 300 participants here in the audience. This year, the organizing team have stated that their objective is to push the needle even further and to make something that's even better. As you've already heard, tonight's theme is Recvolution. In today's extremely fast-paced and perpetually changing society, the truths that we hold sacred seem to be changing all the time. There seems to be a ubiquitous sense of fear and bewilderment when it comes to the future. But there are also exciting and new opportunities. We have more questions than ever before, but no definite answers. Join us in exploring where we seem to be going to define what might be the world of tomorrow, how our relationship with technology is going to evolve, and what these impacts in terms of socio and technological changes might be.
As a society, we are more wired than ever before, but are we less connected? And will the virtual realm become the new reality? But most importantly, will the future of humanity still be human? So today, this talk will be divided into 2 sections, each in which will have 4 speakers. Now, given the TED format, there will be no Q&A, but we do encourage you to harass the speakers during the cocktail section. And please, we ask if you could kindly put your phones on silent for the rest of the talks.
I'm Zane.
And I'm Tiffany, and we are going to be your hosts for the evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce the first speaker of today. He and I used to be colleagues back at McKinsey & Company, where he used to be the Chief Global Learning Officer. He is also the founder of the e-Learning Foundation for Kids, which has provided more than 20 million kids access to free online education. Nick Van Dam today sits on the board of directors at IE and has recently been appointed IE's Chief Learning Officer with his TED Talk entitled Unlocking Job Vitality in the Digital Age, Health, Well-Being, and Happiness. Please put your hands together for Nick Van Dam.
Earlier in the year, I went to an amazing island, Koh Samui in Thailand. I was by myself, and although I'm a social person, I thought, you know what, the first night, let's spend time with people at the community dinner table. And I had a wonderful conversation with the person next to me, and I asked him, what brought you to this wellness resort here in Thailand? And he said to me, Nick, let me share my story. I'm a very successful real estate executive. But 2 months ago, I woke up and I had all-going flashes in my eyes. My hands were shaking and I could hardly get out of bed. And I realized something was really wrong. I went to my physician who conducted a number of tests and I was scared. And he got back to me and said, you have developed a severe burnout. And the doctor asked him to stop working immediately. Now, over my next 9 days, I enjoyed swimming and doing other things, but every night I went to the community dinner table. And I had conversations with 8 other people. And they shared with me similar stories. Leading very successful professionals and leaders who had developed a severe burnout. And sadly, they are not alone. All of you have a high risk of developing a burnout during your careers. And what's daunting actually is that, work is the leading cause for stress. But 94% of people, they say that they have a high stress level, but even 1/3 of people say it's unsustainable. And what's very concerning to me is that there's a growing number of people in their early 20s who have developed a burnout. And not a surprise to you, burnout has become one of the most discussed topics in society. And very recently, the World Health Organization has qualified burnout as an official medical condition. Now, what we see actually is that a lot of unhappy and stressed out people are heading back to their homes and their families every night. And most people, unfortunately, they look forward what we call in the United States TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. But on Monday mornings, there's a 20% increase in heart attacks. And a lot of people feel that their managers don't really care about them. They are a dispensable resource in a big machine. And the Mayo Clinic argues that your manager is more important for your health than your physician. Now, we live in an extraordinary time. A period of time coined by the World Economic Forum as the 4th Industrial Revolution. And this revolution is fueled by advancements in technologies, what is fascinating, and it energized me a lot. But all these technologies have the potential to completely disrupt entire industries, companies, and organizations. And organizations who like to survive, they have to innovate at the speed of business. And secondly, they have to transform themselves digitally. And all of this has a huge impact on you and your way of working. Because our companies expect us to work agile, virtual, global, in a networked organization, reporting to many different bosses. There is no end in deadlines and new initiatives that we have to meet. And out of the office doesn't exist anymore. A couple of months ago, I was on a flight from Amsterdam to Boston, and I got an email from one of my colleagues who said, "Nick, you are not out of the office. I know you're on a plane, and you have access to Wi-Fi. So why can't you just work on the PowerPoint deck for me?" And when I spend time with leaders, they're telling me, "Nick, I'm busy from 8 to late, and I have hardly time to just reflect." So, welcome to the 21st century workplace. Okay, we go back. In terms of our life, I think what's very exciting is that what we have seen is that life expectancy has increased since 1840 with 3 months for each year. So 50% of babies born in wealthy countries after 2000 are likely to celebrate their 100th birthday. Now, this is fantastic, but if you reflect on it, it has a huge impact on retirement. So people are part of Generation Z, and the oldest of you are 24. You will not retire until your mid-70s. If you are in your mid-40s, you are even not at the midpoint of your career. Now, organizations expect all of us to perform consistently at a very high level. But we can only achieve that if we stay healthy in life. So performance for life is all about, staying vital for our jobs. I've developed some model, a job vitality model, an evidence-based model, with a colleague and friend of mine, Noémie Le Pertel. And this model is all about, how we stay vital in the workforce. And there are a couple of key domains. It's about body, mind, and purpose. And if we want to advance our level of health, well-being, and happiness, we need to pay attention to a number of dimensions and practices that you see in the outer circle of this model. But also the social environment, our work environment, and the nature environment have a huge impact on our job vitality. And I will take you through a couple of dimensions of this model. The first one is body. A leading American cancer researcher completed recently a fantastic book. It's called Anti-Cancer Living. And although he has followed his own recipe, he was diagnosed with cancer. And he was, just like many of us and myself, devoted and passionate about his career, what has pushed him often beyond what was healthy for his body. And he acknowledged that it has been a huge challenge for him to manage stress over many years, and at the same time, he developed not necessarily healthy sleeping habits. Now, what we know from research is that exercise and nutrition is incredibly important for our health. Paying attention to our stress levels and to our sleep is actually critical. And about 51% of people globally they say that they don't get enough sleep on an average night. And also, a lot of leaders are at work who are sleep deprived. And that has a huge impact on decision-making, on judgment, on building relationships, but also on their regulation of their emotions. And last but not least, on memorization. So, people in the workforce who don't get enough sleep, that has a huge negative impact on the overall climate. Another one is mind. And if we reflect on the fourth industrial revolution, all of us have to upskill and reskill ourselves at the pace of business. We need to develop lifelong learning mindsets in order to stay employable in the workforce. And in my conversation with many HR leaders from leading companies who are going through a digital transformation, they said to me, Nick, people need to significantly upskill themselves. But honestly, can people learn at a certain age? Now, here the good news is that what we know from neuroscience is that our brains can continue to change in our lives. It's not static, it's elastic. It's what we refer to as neuroplasticity. But there's one important condition for learning and growth in your life, and that is you need to stay healthy. And the last domain is purpose. Last year, I received a book from a friend of mine, Paul de Blot. And Paul is a professor in business spirituality. Paul is writing provocative books. He is an inspiring teacher, and he's an amazing coach for executives. Now, what's unique about Paul is that Paul is 94 years old. And I had lunch with Paul, and I said, Paul, where are you getting your energy from to work far beyond your retirement age? And he said to me, Nick, it's all about my purpose. I have found my purpose. And what we know about people who have found their purpose, they have a very clear direction in terms of what they want to do in life. They can differentiate in terms of what's important or not important. They gain tremendous energy and passion from what they are working on. And as a consequence, they are typically very successful because they put all their energy, their skills at work to support their overall purpose. But what's interesting as well is they are healthier, they are happier, and they live more successful lives. So, we need a human revolution. We need to stop the downward spiral when it comes to stress, burnout, and unhappiness. And everything starts with education. Unfortunately, we have a generation of managers in the workforce who have been educated at business schools to put their own interest ahead of others. And you could say, well, that our managers, management defined as people who manipulate others for their own benefit. And that kind of manager has a huge negative impact on people and on the climate in organizations. Not a surprise to many of you that the number one reason people are quitting jobs for the last 50 years is basically their manager. So what we need is human leaders. There are people who are the stewards of those who are entrusted to them in their lives. And they apply human leadership practices like building trust, developing positive relationships, empathic listening, pursuing optimism, celebrating success. And if you reflect on this, and if you look at what's happening outside, there's also fantastic news. There are organizations who are flourishing, who are doing really well. And as a consequence, there's less burnout, less stress, people have less sick days, they feel way more satisfied with life, they are more productive. And I want to invite all of you to join the human revolution that needs to go hand in hand with the Industrial Revolution. And basically, start practicing habits that will help you to become more healthy, better well-being, and also more happy. And secondly, for leaders to embrace human leadership practices. We can start today with all of this. Don't wait for an email from the CEO. I think we have a very exciting time ahead of us if we basically let the Industrial Revolution go hand in hand with a human revolution. Thank you so much.
The next speaker we would like to welcome to the stage is best described as a business-to-consumer guy in a business-to-business world. Now, I only have a minute to describe him, so I'm probably going to do him a disservice. But what I can say is that he had 2 degrees from Stanford, including computer science and Japanese, and he is the current executive vice president at Amadeus. So, talking about the juxtaposition of affordable, enjoyable travel, can we please all clap our hands and welcome Michael Bale.
Buenas tardes. How many of you woke up this morning and the very first thing you did was reach for your mobile phone? Show of hands. How many of you had that mobile phone in your hand and the very first thing you did was either read or respond to a text message? How many of you woke up this morning? You're not alone. 40% of us are guilty of exactly the same thing. And it should be no surprise, we're spending up to 6 hours in front of our mobile screens every single day. And we're checking this up to 200 times a day. And when you think of that, that's about half of our time that we're awake every day. And if you don't believe me, I highly encourage you to look at your own phone. Apple, Android recently introduced services to raise self-awareness that you might be spending a little too much time with yourself. And what's interesting here is there should be no surprise that the amount of travel that is purchased digitally is now hitting around 50%. And in fact, our digital comfort, our digital expectations are probably correlated very much with the growth of travel in the last decade. If you think about it, FOMO, fear of missing out, bucket lists, terms that we intertwine with travel are only 15 years new, which is precisely the beginning of the mobile revolution. And what follows people faster than a stingy bee on a warm summer Madrid day? Advertising. Brands are going to spend, in 2 years' time, more than double their media budgets in mobile than in television. So why is this relevant? Well, travel is big. The world's GDP is represented 10% by travel. In some countries, like the Maldives, that number is up to 80%. Governments are fighting to earn your dollars in their countries. Some countries, like the Seychelles, spends upwards of 20% of their media budget trying to attract you. And let's look at the competition. In 2017, 1.3 billion people arrived in a country. That's 50% greater than a decade ago, half of which here in Europe, led by France, but Spain is second. And what are they fighting for? The $1 trillion we're spending in local economies. Now, what's marvelous about mobile, and it's kind of sensible, it's a two-way communication. I mean, it's a phone, right? So those 6 hours of screen time, we're not just consuming content, we're composing. We're leaving posts, we're sharing photos, we're uploading videos. Now, we don't know for certain the percentage of photos in Instagram that are travel-related. But we know for certain that 80% of millennials are inspired by the Instagram platform when planning their travel, half of which will solely choose their destination based on the Instagrammability of the location. This digital platform, this digital experience, isn't just influencing how we plan our travel, it's also influencing how we make our decisions of purchase when buying travel. And it's not just air, it's hotels, it's tours, it's restaurants, and we'll look at all of them. So let's begin with hotels. Hotels are led by two big giants, Expedia and Booking.com, which was formerly Priceline. And brands you may love, Trivago, Kayak, Hotels.com, actually, they're all owned by those same two companies. Big giants, Marriott, or small boutique hotels in Ibiza, they suffer the same challenge. They pay up to 20% commission to receive guests from this duopoly. Enter Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight was a brand in 2010 that launched to quench the thirst of the millennial traveler. It created a mobile-only platform which worked only upon arrival, which appealed to only searching for hotels after 12 p.m. in that city for that night, hence the name Hotel Tonight. And an overnight success because it was so simple, so easy, meet the millennial needs of a combination of convenience and price. And as they succeeded over time, they confronted two unexpectations. The first was these hoteliers. Now, they're giving a little bit less commission because Hotel Tonight is a new entrant, but they're still paying. Yet, because of the brand affinity and the ease of use, it was just so simple to buy, you found these hoteliers tweeting, "I've got inventory, please go buy, but at Hotel Tonight." And drawing and making that brand more successful. And the other unexpected circumstance was, it was so damn easy to buy that they had some unintended interested parties to return the purchase. Now, when asking the founders what happened here, well, most of those were kicking back a few at the bar, and it was so damn easy they forgot they bought a hotel, leading to a problem. So an engineer came one day and said, "I have a solution," and launched this. And while it may look like the logo, you actually see here a payment confirmation page. And while it may seem simple to trace the letter H, I challenge you to do that while you're under the influence. Profits soared, and Hotel Tonight became so successful, they sold this past year to Airbnb, the other major disruptor in the travel industry. So let's discuss Airbnb. They are not only interested in your lodging dollars, they're also interested in what you do when you arrive in a location. Where are you eating? Where are you spending time? What tours are you seeking? Because at the point when you buy your airfare, only 3% of you at that time have also chosen a hotel. Rarely have you chosen your car, and surely you have not chosen your tours. So this is a golden opportunity for everyone to fight for you. Your airline, Iberia, your Airbnb, even your car rental company, all peddling you with offers. So what works in this? Those who are successful are beginning to extract the best that we're seeing in the digital world and the retail world, a brand we all recognize. If you see these two choices, more likely than not, the majority of you will choose the €2.50 cup. Proven science. The exact same product line, we had a third choice, and that began to change. The majority of you, nothing's changed, will choose the €3.50 price. This is known as the decoy effect. Where have we seen this? Where have we seen this? Airlines. The last 18 months, you may have noticed, economy light, which is arguably not much more than a seat, economy and economy flexible. They've steered you subconsciously to choose that secondary product, inflating their profits to an all-time high in the industry. Where else do we see this? Museums. I'd offer the Louvre. You have a choice of buying a ticket as admission, a skip-the-line ticket, and a skip-the-line ticket with a tour. With all these three choices, you can kind of guess where they're headed. What's fascinating here is that this space is not digital. Only 14% of tours and activities are purchased digitally. Last week, the Louvre Museum was closed, not just on a Tuesday, but on a Wednesday. Why? Because the officials were concerned of overcapacity, because of the number of their people, the guests, seeking that Mona Lisa for that selfie. They actually closed the museum. Over-tourism is a real challenge that we face in local tours. Let's look at the mighty Everest. China had already put a quota. Nepal is considering the same. And while there are only 400 climbers permitted to make that summit, because the weather patterns are so challenging, there's only 2 or 3 days that are permissible. And look what happened this year. This happened just 2 weeks ago. A terrible traffic jam, 3 hours of unplanned waiting. Consequences severe. People lost oxygen. They fell off the mountain. Over a dozen died. Lake Elsinore, a small little village on the highway between San Diego and East Los Angeles. Arguably no one even knew of it before, I certainly hadn't. Came to notoriety this year because of a poppy blossom festival. What is a poppy blossom festival? Forbes magazine said it's one of the best 16 places to go visit this spring. Not 15, 16. And people came. They Instagram, they Facebook, they photographed, and sure enough, dozens, tens of dozens, thousands. And the town officials were elated. They built an extra parking lot, they brought shuttle buses, they put portable toilets, and look what happened. 60,000 people came one weekend, which is more than the population. So much so that town officials had to put a mea culpa saying, actually, this is a commodity. Here are 11 other places you can go see poppy blossoms. The poppy apocalypse. Arguably for a pop-up or puppy-up destination. Lastly, let's turn to food. Half of you in the room will see a wonderful setting, relaxing by the lake, enjoying a suntan. The other half of you see food, see hot dogs. Am I right? But I'm not going to talk about hot dogs. I'm going to talk about Michelin food. About a month ago, my girlfriend and I had the pleasure of dining at 11 Madison Park, which, if you know, is the #1 rated restaurant in all of the U.S. And I have been seeking and anticipating this with great pleasure. We arrive, and we have our pre-dinner cocktail, and we sit down, and there's a box, kind of awkward on the table. So normally when you see a box, it's kind of a subtle hint, you're supposed to pay, get out. And here I'm thinking perfection. And I'm like, oh my gosh, did they forget the previous guest? Like, I kind of want to take a peek. How much is it going to cost? The waiter sees I'm a little confused, comes over and offers the following. Words from his mouth I have never heard before in a restaurant. He simply said, we invite you to place your mobile phones in this box to enjoy the pleasure of dining with us tonight. Those are pretty polite yet formal words. And having spent some time in South Carolina, it reminded me of these grandiose plantations with these crazy lawns and this beautiful southern hospitality, which would never say, keep out. It would say, beyond this point, by invitation only. So I'm thinking, is this a hint? Is this a request? What is this? So I look around, and people are snapping, snap, 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 snap. You know what? I'm snapping. We're keeping our phones. This is my hard-earned money. I really want to enjoy it. And while I may not look like an Instagrammer, I am one on TV. So as we're having dinner, later that evening, I start doing some research. Let's be honest. I started doing it in the second course with the mobile phone. And I realized there is a massive controversy at the elite levels of gastronomy. You have this interesting dilemma, digitally impacted, where you have these chefs who tire and tearsome go through the food ladder all the way up and create these culinary innovations. And literally, these are circus acts that they master between the prepping, the cooking, the plating, and the delivery to you to have your taste buds enjoy their mastery. To be destroyed by FOMO paparazzi. Not something taken lightly in that world, and a big debate for us to consider. Maybe not for the hot dog vendor, but certainly for the gastronomy experts. Finally, what really scares me most is, while I've given you a number of facts and figures, we're just at the beginning of travel digitalization. The reality, only 30% of Americans have a passport, only 8% of the Chinese. That's going to double in 2 years. We're already seeing some of the over-tourism concerns I've mentioned. And really, finally, what's most disturbing, despite all the reality of the digital messages we will see and continue to see, I guarantee if I were to take a poll today of where do you next want to travel, between Nick's opening remarks of where his wellness visit was and my tropical shirt, I'm guessing you're going to say Thailand. And the power of subliminal influence is amazing. But unfortunately, I don't have time to talk about tonight. Thank you very much.
I visit the future for a living. Not just one future, but many possible futures, bringing back evidences from those futures for you to experience today. Like an archaeologist of the future. Over the years, my many journeys have brought back things like a new species of synthetically engineered bees, a book named Pets as Protein, a machine that makes you rich by trading your genetic data, a lamp powered by sugar, a computer for growing food. Okay, so I don't actually travel to different futures yet. But my husband John and I spend a lot of time thinking and creating visions of different futures in our studio. We are constantly looking out for weak signals, those murmurs of future potential. Then we trace those threads of potential out into the future, asking, what might it feel like to live in this future? What might we see, hear, and even breathe? Then we run experiments, build prototypes, make objects, bringing aspects of these futures to life, making them concrete and tangible so you can really feel the impact of those future possibilities here and now. But this work is not about predictions. It's about creating tools that can help connect our present and our future selves, so we become active participants in creating a future we want, a future that works for all. So how do we go about doing this? For a recent project called Drone Avery, we were interested in exploring what it would mean to live with drones in our cities. Drones that have the power to see things we can't, to go places we can't, and to do so with increasing autonomy. But to understand the technology, getting our hands dirty was crucial. So we built several different drones in our studio. We gave them names, functions, and then flew them. But not without difficulty. Things came loose, GPS signals glitched, and drones crashed. But it was through such experimentation that we could construct a very concrete and very experiential slice of one possible future. So now, let's go to that future. Let's imagine we are living in a city with drones like this one. We call it the Night Watchman. It patrols the streets, often spotted in the evenings and at nights. Initially, many of us were annoyed by its low, dull hum. But then, like everything else, we got used to it. Now, what if you could see the world through its eyes? See how it constantly logs every resident of our neighborhood, logging the kids who play football in the no-ball game area and marking them as statutory nuisances. and then see how it disperses this other group who are teenagers with the threat of an autonomously issued injunction. And then there's this giant floating disk called Madison. Its glaring presence is so overpowering, I can't help but stare at it. But it feels like each time I look at it, it knows a little more about me. Like it keeps flashing all these Brian Air adverts at me, as if it knows about the holiday I'm planning. I'm not sure if I find this mildly entertaining or just entirely invasive. Back to the present. In creating this future, we learned a lot. Not just about how these machines work, but what it would feel like to live alongside them. Whilst drones like Madison and Night Watchman in these particular forms are not real yet, most elements of our drone future are in fact very real today. For instance, facial recognition systems are everywhere, in our phones, even in our thermostats and in cameras around our cities, keeping a record of everything we do, whether it's an advertisement we glanced at or a protest we attended. These things are here, and we often don't understand how they work and what their consequences could be. And we see this all around us, this difficulty in even imagining how the consequences of our actions today will affect our future. Last year, where I live in the UK, there was a referendum where the people could vote for UK to leave the EU or stay in the EU, popularly known as Brexit. And soon after the results came out, a word began to surface called regret, describing people who chose to vote for Brexit as a protest, but without thinking through its potential consequences. And this disconnect is evident in some of the simplest things. Say you go out for a quick drink. Then you decide you wouldn't mind a few more. You know you'll wake up in the morning feeling awful, but you justify it by saying, that other me in the future will deal with that. But as we find out in the morning, that future you is you. When I was growing up in India in the late 70s and early 80s, there was a feeling that the future both needed to and could actually be planned. I remember my parents had to plan for some of the simplest things. When they wanted a telephone in our house, they needed to order it and then wait. Wait for nearly 5 years before it got installed in our house. And then if they wanted to call my grandparents who lived in another city, they needed to book something called a trunk call, and then wait again for hours or even days. And then abruptly the phone would ring at 2 in the morning, and all of us would jump out of our beds and gather around the phone, shrieking into it, discussing general well-being at 2 in the morning. Today it can feel like things are happening too fast. So fast that it can become really difficult for us to form an understanding of our place in history. It creates an overwhelming sense of uncertainty and anxiety, and so we let the future just happen to us. We don't connect with that future us. We treat our future selves as a stranger and the future as a foreign land. But it's not a foreign land, it's unfolding right in front of us, continually being shaped by our actions today. We are that future. And so I believe fighting for a future we want is more urgent and necessary than ever before. We have learned in our work that one of the most powerful means of affecting change is when people can directly, tangibly, and emotionally experience some of the future consequences of their actions today. Earlier this year, the government of the United Arab Emirates invited us to help them shape their country's energy strategy all the way up to 2050. Based on the government's econometric data, we created this large city model and visualized many possible futures on it. So, as I was excitably taking a group of government officials and members of energy companies through one sustainable future on our model, one of the participants told me, I cannot imagine that in the future people will stop driving cars and start using public transport. And then he said, there's no way I can tell my own son to stop driving his car. But we were prepared for this reaction. Working with scientists in a chemistry lab in my home city in India, we had created approximate samples of what the air would be like in 2030 if our behavior stays the same. And so I walked the group over to this object that emits vapor from those air samples. Just one whiff of the noxious polluted air from 2030 brought home the point that no amount of data can. This is not the future you would want your children to inherit. The next day, the government made a big announcement. They would be investing billions of dollars in renewables. We don't know what part our future experiences played in this decision, but we know that they've changed their energy policy to mitigate such a scenario. While something like air from the future is very effective and tangible, the trajectory from our present to a future consequence is not always so linear. Even when a technology is developed with utopian ideals, the moment it leaves the laboratory and enters the world, it is subject to forces outside of the creator's control. For one particular project, we investigated medical genomics, the technology of gathering and using people's genetic data to create personalized medicine. We were asking, what are some of the unintended consequences of linking our genetics to healthcare? To explore this question further, we created a fictional lawsuit and brought it to life through 31 pieces of carefully crafted evidence. So we built an illegal genetic clinic, a DIY carbon dioxide incubator, and even bought frozen mice on eBay. So now let's go to that future where this lawsuit is unfolding and meet the defendant, Arnold Mann. Arnold is being prosecuted by this global giant biotech company called Dynamic Genetics because they have evidence that Arnold has illegally inserted the company's patented genetic material into his body. How on earth did Arnold manage to do that? Well, it all started when Arnold was asked to submit his saliva sample in this spit kit to the NHI, the UK's National Health Insurance Service. When Arnold received his health insurance bill, he was shocked and scared to see that his premiums had gone through the roof beyond anything he or his family could ever afford. The state's algorithm had scanned his genetic data and found the risk of a chronic health condition lurking in his DNA. And so Arnold had to start paying towards the potential costs of that potential future disease from today. In that moment of fear and panic, Arnold slipped through the city into the dark shadows of this illegal clinic for treatment. A treatment that would modify his DNA so that the state's algorithm would no longer see him as a risk, and his insurance premiums would become affordable again. But Arnold was caught, and the legal proceedings in the case Dynamic Genetics versus Mann began. In bringing such a future to life, what was important to us was that people could actually touch, see, and feel its potential. Because such an immediate and close encounter provokes people to ask the right questions. Questions like, what are the implications of living in a world where I'm judged on my genetics? Or, who might claim ownership to my genetic data, and what might they do with it? If this feels even slightly out there or far-fetched, today there's a little-known bill being passed through the American Congress known as HR 1313, the Preserving Employee Wellness Program Act. This bill proposes to amend the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, popularly known as GINA, and would allow employers to ask about family medical history and genetic data to all employees for the first time. Those who refuse would face large penalties. In the work I've shown so far, whether it was drones or genetic crimes, these stories describe troubling futures with the intention of helping us avoid those futures. But what about what we can't avoid? Today, especially with climate change, it looks like we are heading for trouble. And so what we want to do now is to prepare for that future by developing tools and attitudes that can help us find hope. Hope that can inspire action. Currently, we are running an experiment in our studio. It's a work in progress. Based on climate data projections, we are exploring a future where the Western world has moved from abundance to scarcity. We imagine living in a future city with repeated flooding, periods with almost no food in supermarkets, economic instabilities, broken supply chains. What can we do to not just survive, but prosper in such a world? What food can we eat? To really step inside these questions, we are building this room in a flat in London from 2050. It's like a little time capsule that we've reclaimed from the future. We've stripped it down to the bare minimum. Everything we lovingly put in our homes, like flat panel TVs, internet-connected fridges, and artisanal furnishings, all had to go. And in its place, we are building food computers from abandoned, salvaged, and repurposed materials, turning today's waste into tomorrow's dinner. For instance, we've just finished building our first fully automated fogponics machine. So it uses the technique of fogponics, so just fog as a nutrient, not even water or soil, to grow things quickly. At the moment, We have successfully grown tomatoes. But we'll need more food than what we can grow in this small room. So what else could we forage from the city? Insects? Pigeons? Foxes? Earlier, we brought back air from the future. This time, we are bringing an entire room from the future, a room full of hope, tools, and tactics to create positive action in hostile conditions. Spending time in this room, a room that could be our own future home, makes the consequences of climate change and food insecurity much more immediate and tangible. What we are learning through such experiments and our practice and the people we engage with is that creating concrete experiences can bridge the disconnect between today and tomorrow. By putting ourselves into different possible futures, by becoming open and willing to embrace the uncertainty and discomfort that such an act can bring, we have the opportunity to imagine new possibilities. We can find optimistic futures, we can find paths forward, we can move beyond hope into action. It means we have the chance to change direction, a chance to have our voices heard, a chance to write ourselves into a future we want. Other worlds are possible. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the next speaker of the evening. She has 6 years of experience, starting up 3 companies, and even working in social entrepreneurship for a university. She's got one of those really cool titles, like Chief Happiness Officer. She's called a growth designer, and she's influenced the likes of Google. Sorry about that technical difficulty. She's influenced the likes of Google, Johnson & Johnson, and IDEO, which is a design thinking consulting firm. She has special interests in developing policies for vulnerable populations. And she, Daniela Cadena, is here to convince us that automation is not to be feared. In fact, it might well be the solution to some of humanity's greatest challenges, and thus forcing us as humans to explore perhaps a changed role in our future. Ladies and gentlemen, with her TED Talk titled Rediscovering Human Value, I introduce to you Daniela Cadena.
Hello, humans. Today, I'm going to tell you a story about this animal that has been in the making for millions of years. An animal that about 30 to 40,000 years ago developed this unique ability to make the abstract and make it tangible. When we discovered the human, this animal's, cave paintings, it was one of the first manifestations of creativity in our species. See, we use our imagination to bring into this tangible dimension. And I'm so intrigued by these unique human traits, from the ability to formulate a question or be creative, because I fundamentally believe that we need to go back to our roots as we design systems, products, and services to be inclusive in this fourth industrial revolution. This fourth industrial revolution that is blurring the lines between biology, digital world, and the physical world, where we know that the scope of impact is going to be so vast, it's going to leave no industry untouched. The World Economic Forum states that it's going to involve every stakeholder of society, from the private to the public sector, academia, and civil society. That's you and I. The fourth industrial revolution has such cool technologies that for the first time, we're able to solve the most complex problems of our time. There's just one problem. We've been stuck in a negative rhetoric, where as I stand here before you, so close to graduating to my master's, I recognize that along with thousands of other students, we're preparing for jobs that won't exist in 5 to 10 years. that the rise of youth unemployment or the rise of toxic nationalism is evidence that our government systems, our financial systems, and our political systems have failed to meet the needs of our changing society today. But don't worry, because history repeats itself. And in every major technological revolution, the human's creative ability has allowed it to mold and adapt systems to meet their needs. We saw it in the agricultural revolution. We went from living in nomadic lifestyles to denser communities, and we saw the rise of governance. In the first industrial revolution, with the rise of productivity, we saw wealth inequality widen. But then we saw citizens mobilize around social welfare systems, demanding political rights, demanding education systems. Second industrial revolution, we got labor unions. Third industrial revolution, the youth mobilized and through collective action changed public opinion in the United States, and we got the Civil Acts Right of 1969. But as we enter this fourth industrial revolution that we're all living in already, it's unlike other ones. This one, we can't leave it on autopilot, because the technologies of this industrial revolution, they're blurring the lines between predictive and prescriptive analysis. Predictive analysis is just that. It's grabbing historical data and predicting or foreseeing future trends. But prescriptive analysis takes that one step further. Pay attention. It grabs predictive analysis, but it provides data-backed, actionable steps on how to deal with these predictions. And it sometimes removes the human decision. And we're starting to see this impact our lives in very meaningful ways already. From how the police departments in California are using prescriptive analysis to dictate which neighborhoods to patrol at night, or how Facebook's algorithm is learning so much about you and I that their prescriptive algorithms choose what news to give you or not. And now we're seeing China. China's collecting this massive amount of indicators from your phones, from how the way someone pays a traffic ticket or not, to create a social credit system that rates a citizen's behavior or trustworthiness. And based on that, you have access to different rights or services from the government. This is where it gets tricky, because unlike previous industrial revolutions, we have to take a significant role in how we do things, because we have to ensure that these systems are designed to serve us, not capture us. Otherwise, the prescriptive nature of our algorithms are going to lead us down a path that probably resembles more Orwell's 1984. So, it's just time to go back to the humanities, to dive deep in those kind of uncomfortable areas within ourselves. Because it's by going back to the humanities, all these aspects of civil society and culture, that we're going to find how to navigate this ambiguous environment. And that entails reframing how we study global governance. See, traditionally, we've studied governance from a top-down approach, where national governments and federal governments monopolize all forms of power, political, economic, and military. But because of the Industrial Revolution's emerging technologies, we're seeing that shift go from the national level to local governments and cities. We saw them mobilize around climate change, right? But that's coming accompanied by 4 fundamental changes in how we perceive our global society. And these are a change in the perception of space. How are we defining cities? Are they going to reflect networks of information and knowledge creation, or are they going to continue to be constrained by physical boundaries? We're changing our perception of open data, where this relationship with our local government, it's changing as we move towards smart cities. Who's going to protect our data? Is it going to be tech companies like Google? Or is it going to be local governments, maybe you and I, through blockchain-powered systems? We're changing our perception of global society systems, where we recognize that we're interconnected and interdependent, that our climate policies in Madrid do impact the shores of Cape Town, where our human systems, they have a significant impact on natural systems. But the most fundamental change is coming as our perception of citizens. And today I want to challenge you to go one more level down and acknowledge that because of the decreasing cost in transactions for communication and exchange in value, we're seeing the citizen become the smallest node in the system. That's you and I. We're the smallest agent, the agent driving change. So now we understand our role. Now we have to identify how do we add value to society. And that comes back with the humanities, remember? All those aspects of civil society, of culture. And that entails having some tough conversations, like about ethics and morals, because we have to talk about ethics and morals if we want to create comprehensive frameworks that are inclusive in order to deal with biogenetics, artificial intelligence. How do we acknowledge that there's only been 26 countries out of 195 nations that have provided national strategies on dealing with AI? See, don't worry. I know I'm asking us to have tough conversations, but this is where we have to channel our creative intelligence, just like our ancestors did, right? So I know creativity is one of those concepts that has been defined by brilliant minds, from Oliver Sacks to Maria Popova and Einstein. And so when I refer to channeling our creative intelligence, I'm referring to the human's ability to use their imagination to interlace past cultures, experiences, inventions, and weave them and bring them to the world in a whole new world. So, now that we understand that we have to see creativity, we've talked about three key things. We've talked about the shift in global governance, we realize our value as citizens in this industrial revolution, and we recognize that it's value of creativity, because it's creativity what's going to allow us to tackle our fears, embrace the ambiguity, use our own tools, find inspirations to bring forth to the world whatever we want to see. But now I'm going to arm you with a map. This map, it's called the Krebs cycle of creativity, a map that shows the continuation of creative energy throughout our time. Neri Oxman published this in 2016 from the MIT Media Lab, and I quote, she says, "The role of science is to understand and describe the world around us. The role of engineering is to apply scientific knowledge and solve empirical problems. The role of design is to augment the human experience and maximize our function. And the role of art is to question the world around us and raise awareness of human behavior." I told you history repeats itself. Well, we're going around full circle. The last time we saw art be the modality of creativity was during the Renaissance. I don't know about you, but we had some pretty creative minds in the Renaissance. We had the perception. Perception was fundamental in the creation of calculus. And calculus was fundamental in the creation of physics, which is essential in engineering, which gave us all the cool powers that we had, from the steam engine to nuclear power, computational power. Now we're living in the design era, the 21st century, where we're starting to see, from our devices to robotics, our human experience be augmented. But because of the speed of innovation of these technologies, we don't have to wait till the 22nd century to see art. We're starting to see it now. Now, I've given you a map. Your role today is to reframe the way you think about automation. Automation is not going to replace your jobs. They're going to shift. It's freeing up time for us to think about those fundamental human values that are so important for us to think about. We're already seeing how journalists are using AI-powered algorithms to take care of all the transcribing and all the data sorting, so that they can focus on, how do I evoke emotion through my storytelling? What is the message that I want to break down silos across religions or traditions? We're seeing the government of Estonia digitalize their entire government records, and now civil servants are having some time to think about deeper issues, like, what is a remote citizen? And how do we create regulatory frameworks for the digital citizen of this era that might be many of you in this room in the next few years? And so today, I challenge you. I challenge you to choose whichever platform you want. May that be social media, the dining table, the classroom because you're a student or a teacher. But probe your fellow humans. Ask them these topics and talk about ethics and morals. And yes, they are sensitive topics, which is why we continue to avoid them. But don't. Embrace it. Understand the significant role each of us play as a citizen, especially in a time where democracy is being questioned. Understand that it's through channeling our creative intelligence, just like our ancestors did, that we will design systems that are inclusive and leave no one behind. Understand that it's through our collective action, every post, every picture that you post, every memory that you share, that we're defining social meaning right now. It is through our collective action that we will bring the change to the world that we actually want to see. And so I leave you today with a quote by my favorite badass woman called Margaret Mead. And she says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We will now break for a 30-minute cocktail break.
Please feel free to interact with some of our speakers up to now.
There will be a variety of beverages available at the bar. All we ask is that you please enjoy and return to the auditorium as sober as possible.
Just a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, welcome back from the break.
And about our next speaker. So there are a few people in this room or even on this planet who are as passionate about this next topic. So when he's not developing solutions for Fortune 500 companies, he's an avid gamer and reader, saying that he has been playing games or gaming for over 2 decades. I would like to welcome to the stage Prashant Kumar on the topic of full immersion virtual reality.
Good evening. Can you hear me fine? Looks like it. Albert Einstein has a famous quote. He says, imagination is more important than knowledge. It's coming from a physics professor with a Nobel Prize. Imagination is more important than knowledge because knowledge is finite, but imagination is infinite. It leads to innovation, and it leads to evolution. Today, I'm going to talk to you about full immersion virtual reality, called as Full Dive. Many of you think it's 50 years away, 60 years away. Some of you think it's a fantasy. It's here, closer than you think. And a discussion needs to happen which is not happening. And let's have it tonight. So, before we start, why am I so passionate about it? Because ever since I was a kid, I was this scrawny little guy in the corner of your library, just pouring into the books. And not like those studying kinds. I was never very studious. I'm talking about science fiction. I'm talking about Isaac Asimov's Earth series. I'm talking about Michael Crichton, who's writing The Lost World. I'm talking about Doctor Who, BBC series. Absolutely loved it. Who wouldn't? You go to a planet in a box which looks like a telephone booth, in a planet which is ruled by ants. It was like the ultimate kid's dream to be there. But then, I turned a teenager, and this happened. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is existential crisis at its best. Like, is it really happening? Is it real? Is it virtual? Like, am I Neo? I don't know. But it did open my eyes that there is a possibility of an alternate reality. And that alternate reality can be achieved through the use of machines. As far-fetched it may sound, take a moment to think, are we really that far away? Are we really that far away? And then I grew up and I went to college, a place where you do everything but study. And I discovered online gaming. Oh my God. I'm a guy, I can play like a girl with anyone from US to Europe, I don't care. But more important than that, I can be anyone, I can do anything. Guys are laughing, but at the end, for me, it was the perfect escape for a guy who didn't want to be in a course for which he had enrolled. Suddenly, the 8 hours outside of college became the best place of my day. And it became a passion which has gone on for nearly, as our anchor said, 2 decades. Even now, I have games on my laptop, and I'm playing them regularly. But then, you do all of this, there's an escape element to it, there's a fantasy element to it. And then 2 years later, I discovered that there is this genre of books on Kindle. It's called Lit RPG or Literature RPG. And that genre of books is about basically online gaming, but in a book. So for a guy now that I have a full-time job, thankfully, so I cannot devote so much time, so I started reading. I have a Kindle on every possible device. So I have it on my phone, my iPad, even on my laptop, my office one. And I read. And in the last probably year and a half, I've gone through 80 plus titles. I finish a book a week. I'm that hooked. And I'm running out of books. So I have to tell Kindle, like, guys, you need to get more books. But why so? But the one fundamental thing which I found in this is like all these books, all of these books, they showcase full immersion, virtual reality in a cohesive manner. The cohesion is uncanny. And last year, that cohesion became true. For all the reasons of graphics and storyline and whatever, I loved Ready Player One the most because of how accurate it was in defining how virtual reality is going to look. It was not Avatar. It was not plugging a thing into your head. No. It was using haptic devices to transport into your virtual world. And now, they predicted a life 50 years ago, 60 years ago doing this. I'm telling you, it's 15 years ahead. That's it. 15 years. By the time most of you think about retirement, you have an option of playing virtual reality for all your life. But before I go there, let's take a step back. Okay? What is full immersion virtual reality? It's moving from a visual movement towards a complete sensory involvement. An edge where you cannot tell whether it is real or virtual. Literally matrix all over. You cannot tell it. And you will think, come on, not possible, right? Let's see. You see this? This is available right now. $3,000 buys you a fully functional VR rig where you can shoot a dragon down. It has an omnidirectional treadmill. You can walk on it. You have gloves on your hands, so you can throw a bow and an arrow. You have the speakers in your ears, so you hear it, and your eyes are covered. The only thing missing are your 5 senses. But let's see where we get with that. However, in all the books I read, there is another level of virtual. All of them, all 80 plus of them talk about the next evolution. And that next evolution is what we call the avatar mode. You go into a capsule, you're immobile, and you feel everything. And how is that possible? That is possible because full immersion is based on 5 basic pillars. You have 5 pillars or 5 senses to define reality. VR has 5 senses or 5 pillars to define what it is. It is the neural connection. It is a sense of touch, sense of smell, sense of taste, and finally an AI which combines all of them. So let's see where we are with all of them. So sense neural link. You will be surprised to know that we have been researching neural links since 1970. And in 2004, university researchers have already published a paper saying we can have a brain-machine interface. In 2010, in Brown University, they plugged a paralytic woman to a robot, and after many hours of trial and error, they were able to get that woman connect with the robot, pick a glass of water, take a sip, and put it back just by thinking about it. No commands, no voice commands, no facial, nothing. And if you think that's freaky, if you have the money, you can buy an e-skin. What is an e-skin? You wear it, and whatever you do in real life gets tracked on the virtual. So if you're doing this, it gets tracked. If you're moving something, it gets tracked. In fact, you can even move a box virtually by plugging it like this from your hand, and you can move it down there. So that's the brain connection done. Let's talk the next one, the touch, right? That's the haptic armband. What is a haptic armband? This girl is playing a piano, and she can feel the keys and the vibration of the piano through the armband. And how are they doing it? They're doing it by having tiny speakers embedded inside the glove, which generate a vibration on your skin. And that vibration is the same vibration your body and your brain perceives. And it tricks them into thinking whether somebody is caressing you or somebody is punching you. Ultimately, it's a sense of vibration. So, touch done? Let's talk next. Smell. This was launched in 2015 on Kickstarter. It's called, sorry, I'm forgetting the name. And what you can do here is they have changeable cartridges where they have aroma diffusers inside them. And you can smell anything, burning rubber, mint, somebody farting, everything is in there. Not only that, they even have little fans, so they can give you the sensation of a breeze blowing across your face. They have heaters to give you the sensation of fire if it is in front of you. So we got the smell part completely covered, I'm sure. Then we go to touch. Now this was considered the frontier, the final frontier for the full immersion. Thankfully, in University of Singapore, they have developed a device which uses the silver electrodes on your tongue and using a combination of current and heat at the right frequency is able to mimic taste. So we're talking about bitter, sweet, sour, it's there. And they are trying now to reduce it to the size of a lollipop. So now we have all the senses covered, but I personally believed that we will achieve full immersion when we have the AI behind to take care of it. And why so? Because all of this is happening in real time. We need strong processing power to take care of it. I didn't think it was possible until last year, a very big internet company, you all know about it, launched their new artificial intelligence, their new assistant system. And when I saw that system, making a phone call to book a table or setting a hair appointment, and the way it was able to mimic the mannerisms of a human speech, told the limit to which we have come in AI. We are so close to having a sentient AI. There are debates going on between major players right now. And that is going to be the final glue which brings everything together. So, like everything, there is a good side and there is a bad side. The good side, the possibilities are endless. Guys, imagine you have a person who's suffering from PTSD. They can get therapy in a virtual safe environment. You have paralytic people who can walk again. You have military guys who can be trained. You have nuclear scientists performing experiments in a safe environment. But with the good comes the bad. Like any software, it can be hacked. There are no laws. There is no ethics. What is right, what is wrong, who decides? So before I start today, I want to leave you with 3 questions, and I want you to think about it. Question 1, why are we not talking about this? We are all having tweets on sentient AI. What's the last tweet you guys remember about VR? About the talk about the ethicality of VR. Second, who defines the rules there? Is it something which is defined by the government? Is it something which should mimic the real world? Or is it a place where there are no rules? What is right and what is wrong? What is the correct social behavior? What is the incorrect social behavior? But finally, and probably for me, the most important question, there is a possibility of a world where a person would prefer to live in the virtual rather than the real. The social, economic impact of such a decision is unforeseen. So, how much VR is there? Are we going to learn the lessons from the social media debacle? Are we going to learn the lessons from social media addiction? Because if you think Facebook is addicted, try escaping into fantasy. It's 100 times more. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nelson.
I'm Mario.
I'm Stefania.
I'm Javi.
We are TED translators.
We are part of a massive crowdsourced community of volunteers
In 160 countries.
Translating TED Talks
into over 100 languages.
We connect people to world-changing ideas across languages and borders.
Our work is seen on TED.com and on media platforms around the world.
I translated Pope Francis into Brazilian Portuguese.
I translated Mac Burnett into Italian.
I translated Niti Bani in Swahili.
Join our global community.
Gain real-world experience.
And help spread great ideas around the world.
Mimi ni mkalimani wa TED.
Sono una traduttrice per TED.
Eu sou tradutor do TED.
We are TED translators.
Visit TED.com/translate to learn more.
Hello. So the next person we are going to be welcoming to the stage is an exceptional woman. Now, in some ways, she is the definition of a globetrotter. She's lived in over 14 countries. She's a public speaker and a coach, and she coaches CEOs on interpersonal communication, as well as she's closed deals across the nation in multiple regions with a variety of presidents, which I don't think I'm allowed to tell you today. So today what she's going to be speaking about is technology as an extension for superbrains. So I'd like to welcome this superbrain to the stage, Marta de Basilio.
Would you like to have a new superbrain? We all know what this is. But did you ever stop to think what it is for our brains? This is our external memory. This is an extension of our mind. This is a device capable of giving us unlimited knowledge. So many capabilities, so many abilities. Now, think about it. If you have a smart, actually, raise your hand. Who's got a cell phone with them pretty much all the time? Okay, so that would be pretty much everybody. I can't see everybody. Come on, guys, don't lie. You too, raise your hand. Okay, good. Thank you for the lights. So if you have your phone with you, it means pretty much that you're reminded of what to do throughout the day all the time. Birthdays, oh yeah, social media will remind you all the time of when are those birthdays, even from those people you barely know. What about work? Yeah, if you have a cell phone with you, you can work pretty much everywhere. Isn't that fantastic? And what about the videos? If you have a cell phone, you can vividly remember what you were doing 3, 5, 10 years ago. Amazing. And you can actually share those videos as well. You can share videos, memories, you can share ideas. And now it gets even more interesting. Because not only you can share your own ideas, but you can actually share other people's ideas. So what does this mean? If we can actually Google information, we could just Google something in 2 seconds, isn't it somehow part of your knowledge too? I mean, if you guys ask me, Marta, do you know what are the important dates of the French Revolution? I'll go just like, yeah, sure. Let me just Google it. Or, Marta, do you know how to bake a carrot cake? Sure, let me just Google it. Or, Marta, do you know who was the first person to invent a cell phone? Sure, let me just Google it. These are just few of the multiple advantages that phones have, right? But there is a big but. See, 15, 20 years ago, we had to look for things on books, on the internet, but it was very slow too. So somehow, we tend to remember information so much better because we knew that if we didn't learn that information, we would have to go back to the library, back to that book that we read months ago, or we would have to go to our huge, fixed, and slow computer. So we would make a bigger effort to remember things. For instance, if you guys were at a restaurant and you were having a discussion with your friends, you couldn't just look up something on your phone immediately. You would have to wait, right? Therefore, using your memory was a lot more useful than today. But all this, is changing. I'm pretty sure everyone here is going to feel related with this one. Okay, so what about phone numbers? Do you know cell phone numbers today? I'm sure you guys know the cell phone numbers you actually learned when you were kids or years ago. Yeah, right? But not anymore. We don't know cell phone numbers. What about the GPS? Oh my God. I get lost all the time without a GPS. I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing I can do without a GPS. See, this is all great. Memories, external memories are great, but it's really making our brain very lazy. We're losing our memory. We really do need to do something about this. There's actually an effect called the Google effect, that it means the easier you can Google information, the easier it is for you to access information, the more likely you are to forget. This is a huge problem. We do need our brains. We do need our memories. It interferes with the learning process. If you want, for instance, to learn a language, you need to first study it, and then actually you need to use your memory if you want to speak it. Or if you want to play the guitar or any instrument, never mind. And it's actually interfering with our concentration as well. Oh my God, seriously? I was so distracted all the time by my phone when I actually needed to prepare this talk. It took me forever. This is a problem too. But you know what really, really, really matters to me most? Relationships. Oh my God. So the other day, one of my friends here in the audience, Lucia Valero, she calls me and she goes like, "Hey Marta, where are you? Belen is so annoying. She's been on the phone for 30 minutes. Can you please come over?" What is wrong with us? We keep texting, we keep checking pictures and stuff. This is so rude to the people that are with us. We're basically telling them, you know what? The person that I'm talking to is a lot more interesting than you. And actually, not only it is rude, but it is not good for our brains. Because spending time with people is super beneficial for our brains. We release so much endorphins and so much oxytocin. It is amazing for our brains. And somehow, we always feel dragged to our phones. We just can't avoid it. Neuroplasticity has shown that we can actually adapt, that we can evolve. But changes are happening very fast, way too fast. And think about the next thing. We've had the same brain for over 200,000 years. That is insane. And all of a sudden, we're changing things very fast. Think about it. 50 years ago, a computer was the size of this room. It cost around $60 million, and it was only accessible to few. Today, you can put it in your pocket. It's 1,000 times faster, 1,000 times cheaper. Even a poor person in Africa has one, never mind. Everyone can have this. And it's no longer science fiction to think that in no time, very little time, we'll have chip implants. Actually, Elon Musk, he created another company, Neuralink, and he's creating this already. This is already happening. But we know so little about the brain, though. We have so much to explore about the brain. It is so dangerous to do all these things. We are already seeing the consequences, all of us. right? So again, memory, right? Concentration, relationships. Imagine what could happen. So what's my point? Where do I want to get? See, I love technology. I really think all of us here and everyone around the world, we're going to see amazing changes thanks to technology. Great things. We live in the best era ever. However, we're humans. We're not cyborgs, at least not yet. So we need to be humans. So I'm going to challenge you for tonight, when you get back home, drive without a GPS. What an adventure. Try switching your phones when you're with your loved ones, or your friends, whoever it is, and do this a little bit more often. I know it's a challenge to maintain brain sanity in a world of phone insanity. But we all have to make a choice, me too. Either we take care of our brains and we remain them healthy, or we're going to destroy them. I want to have a super brain. I don't know about you guys. Thank you very much.
Hello again. In the age of digital transformation, it's no surprise that it's also affecting industries such as medicine. The person that I'm going to welcome next to the stage is a visionary in this field. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the AIS channel, which is the leading platform for online medical education, and it's dubbed the Netflix of medicine. So now, Netflix and chill can also be educational. So what I would like to do is welcome Hugo de Lacy on 5G and the future of medicine.
Hello everyone. Once upon a time, back in 1876, there was a crazy guy called Alexander who went to the US, to the Western Union offices, saying, hey guys, I have a device that can actually make remote phone calls. Can you help me with the distribution, etc., because I want to sell this device? And the Western Union gurus, let's call it this way, rejected the idea, saying that no family in the US would ever install such a system in their homes, considering that they already have the ability of sending telegraphs, so welcome to modernity, with clear messages to every corner and every city of the US. This guy, Alexander Graham Bell, it's called, a few months later, he invented and he launched the first telephone in the history of humanity, which, as you may know, is one of the major revolutions in our history. So I think that Western Union's directors should not be very happy about the rejection. So as you see, I'm not here. I don't think I've been invited here to give you any kind of class, any kind of lesson. I think I've been invited here to talk about crazy ideas. And when I talk about crazy ideas, which, by the way, is my world, I like crazy people, I like crazy things. I like to scuba dive with white sharks and to do these kind of things. I also talk about crazy ideas, but realistic ideas, that can actually happen and that you can make them a reality. So I'm going to put you a challenge. And I know that you are not able to answer my questions. I'm able to ask you questions, but you're not able to answer them, which is quite funny. but I'm just going to imagine you're answering me, and I'm going to put you a challenge. Imagine that I give you, first of all, imagine you have God hopes not, but imagine you have a cancer, okay? And I give you 2 options. One of those options is you're going to get a surgery to get cured from that cancer by an average surgeon. Like, for example, right now we are in Madrid, yes? In Spain, there is this public system in which, as you know, public hospitals, you have a lot of trainees, resident people, they called, in which they operate patients to learn techniques. So you have the option of getting operated by a resident, by a young surgeon, whatever you want to call it, or you have the option of getting remotely assisted by the best guy, the best surgeon in the world in that technique. What would you choose? Again, you cannot answer, which is quite uncomfortable, but I imagine 95% here, or even more, 99% here, would follow the Western Union thoughts of saying, let's not go risky and let's just have the average surgeon operating on me. 1% will go the Hugo way, which is let's take the risk and let's do it. I want to have the best guy ever, the best cancer surgeon, whatever technique it is, teleassisting me remotely. And that is a crazy idea for most of you. I don't know if you have heard in the news, but we are very proud to have done this for the first time in the world. 3 months ago, back in MWC Barcelona, MWC stands for Mobile World Congress Barcelona, we did the first teleassisted surgery remotely, operating a colon cancer patient through a laparoscopic sigmoidectomy, which is a laparoscopic approach, remotely. The surgeon who was teleassisting the case was 4 kilometers away from the patient. So this, again, this sounded like a crazy idea for everyone, but it became a reality 3 months ago, and we're going to do it for the second time in the world next June 28th in MWC Shanghai, with more than 4,000 miles difference between the surgeon and the patient. So just to let you know that crazy ideas can become real ideas. How was that possible? That's what everyone is asking. Because of the famous 5G technology. Right now, if you don't know anything about 5G, you're not cool. 5G is all over the news. You can see 5G in MWC, National Geographic, CNN, Fox News. Everyone says, hey, yeah, 5G is the future, 5G blah, 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 5G blah, blah, blah. But again, I'm going to ask you another question, and I know that you will not be able to answer me, but I like rebel people, so if someone answers, don't worry. How many people in this room know what 5G is about? With this light, I cannot see nothing, so maybe everyone is raising the hand, and I'm just feeling like stupid, but or maybe I'm just surrounded by the most clever minds in the world. So I'm sure that you know what it is about, but I'm asking about the specifications of that technology, what that technology allows you to do. I'm not that clever like you are, so I didn't know that at the beginning. So just in case someone doesn't know about this, I'm going to do a brief explanation about what this technology is. And in this graphic here you see in my back, you can see a clear definition of the evolution. The first thing I'm going to do when talking about 5G is to become our beloved Mother of Dragons from Game of Thrones and break the wheel, which means breaking the topic that 5G is the evolution of 4G. That's not true. 2G is the evolution of 1G, yes. 3G is the evolution of 2G, yes. 4G is the evolution of 3G, yes. But 5G is not the evolution of 4G. If you want to understand it like in another way, let's put it this way. 1G would be the vinyl record, for example. 2G would be a CD from music. 3G would be, I don't know, a DVD to see a film. 4G would be Blu-ray. 5G would be internet. For you to understand the difference that gathers everything, from Spotify, from Netflix, from AIS, from anything. It allows you to connect every single device in real time. When you ask people about, doesn't work? Sorry. When people talk about 5G, they always talk about speed. So now the slides are going. Can you go backwards, please? No, this one. When you do it your way, okay. When people talk about 5G, they always speak about the same thing. It's much more. What? Oh my God, you are just. Sorry. No. Can you go back to? As you see, I'm stupid. Yeah. No, but it's not going. Let's do it this way, okay? Yeah, there you are. No, because it's not synchronized. Anyway, when people talk about 5G, they always talk about speed. Hey, 5G is far away faster than 4G. That's true. In fact, 5G is 100 times more faster than 4G, but its applications are far bigger. And the biggest one is latency. We were able to do the first tele-assisted surgery during Mobile World Congress Barcelona in February 27, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. Thanks to 5G, thanks to Huawei and Vodafone. I know that Huawei right now has a lot of reputation, but anyway, thanks to technology developed by Vodafone and Huawei, we're able to do the first tele-assisted surgery. And I want you to understand, I'm going to turn around every time now, and I want you to understand that its main impact. Why this is so important? Can you imagine the benefit of having the best doctor, the best surgeon, the best physician, whatever part he is in the world, he's in Paris, he's in Hong Kong, he's in Madrid, he's in Barcelona, he's in Sydney, he's in Melbourne, whatever, to give his knowledge in real time with almost zero latency to whatever patient back in, in another city, in another country, to be operated, to be tele-assisted by the best guy in nephrectomies, in rectopexies, in TEDxIEMadrid, whatever procedure, to be assisted in real time. Can you imagine the social benefit that this has in society? And I want to focus on a sentence very famous from Nelson Mandela that said that knowledge and education is the most powerful tool that you can use to change the world. And in fact, this is my motivation every day. I think that this new technology, talking about 5G, should apply especially to knowledge transfer and education. I have two more minutes left, so I'm going to go straight forward to my message. We need also to take in mind that technology is powerful, but at the same time it's very dangerous. We need to be cautious. I'm sure that everyone in this room has seen the film Terminator, in which these human beings invest so much money in all these technologies until a centralized brain called Skynet controls everything, and they take over humanity, blah blah blah. So 5G regarding healthcare, regarding medicine, regarding surgery, that is our world, should be controlled. You're managing millions of big data, of millions of patients. You have people's life at stake. So I always said, regarding technology, regarding innovation, never stop innovating, but always know, like Spider-Man's uncle said, a great power means a great responsibility. As you see, I like movies. So remember that you need to be cautious. And just to end up my presentation, because here they are telling me that I need to stop. I want you to take this message home. If there is one single message that you can take home, is this one. It can sound like a topic, but I'm 28 years old. I'm a very young guy. I've been in your place. I did business management in Barcelona. I work in a multinational company for 6 months and 1 day. Why 6 months and 1 day? Because the university made me work for 6 months, the day after I quit. because I was not giving any kind of value to that company, you know. So I encourage you to follow your dreams. You know, I'm just thinking right now, because I'm going to be very transparent with you. I'm improvising this talk. Right now I'm just thinking of different things. I remember Steve Jobs saying that you have to follow your intuition. You have to have the courage to follow your intuition, because it somehow knows what you truly want to become. So if you have any crazy idea, no matter what crazy sounds, no matter what people tell you, just go for it. And let me also, to finalize this talk, that if possible, do it in one of the 17 markets. You know, here in the spin, you see 17 colors. These 17 colors represents the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were recently launched by the United Nations, which is no poverty, education worldwide, gender equality, justice, peace, etc., etc., etc. Why I say this? Because you have any idea of a business, you know, to make your own, you know, to any kind of thing you want to do, I can guarantee you that because I have lived that. To make your own business successful is will give you a full satisfaction. But if you do a business that is successful, but at the same time has an impact in society, I can guarantee you that how can I say this? Your heart will be filled forever. So who is going to be the next crazy guy in this room? I hope someone here. So thank you very much, everyone.
Future tech always comes with two things: promise and unintended consequences. And it's those consequences that I want to explore. And before we get to how future tech may affect us, I'd like to spend a little time exploring the unintended consequences of some of our recent tech, namely social media. Social media, a few short years ago, was the tech of future you. Now it just is you. Social media was supposed to bring us together in ways we could never imagine. And the predictors were correct. These three girls are talking to one another without the awkward discomfort of eye contact. I call that advancement. We were supposed to be caught up in a communication tsunami, the likes of which the world has never seen. And that did happen. And so did this. One of these things is not like the other. Now look at this picture. If you pick the guy with the book, you are wrong. Or as a certain president would say, wrong. Clearly, three of these guys are reading, and one guy on the end is listening to music and playing Candy Crush. So are we more connected, or are we just more connected to our devices? Social media was supposed to place us in a veritable town square where we could engage one another with challenging ideas and debates. And instead, what we got were trolls. This is an actual tweet that I received. Chuck, no one wants to hear your stupid, ill-informed political views. I hope you get leprosy and die. Love, Dad. Now, the great thing about that tweet, if you look at it, just like most trolls, it's not that bad, because he wished leprosy on me instead of leprosy, and leprosy is not dangerous at all. Along with trolls, we got a brand new way of torturing teenagers: cyberbullying. A concept that my 75-year-old mother just can't seem to wrap her head around. So did they hit him? No, Mom, they didn't hit him. Did they take his money? No, Mom, they didn't take his money. They put his face in the toilet? No, Mom, they didn't. Well, what did they do? They attacked him on the internet. Attacked him on the internet? Well, why don't you just turn off the internet? Your whole generation is a bunch of wussies. She's got a point. She's got a point. And I don't even want to talk about what social media has done to dating. I was on Grindr until I found out it wasn't a sandwich app. And I can't even tell you about Tinder, except for the fact that if you think that there is a limit to the amount of anonymous sex we can have on this planet, you are sadly mistaken. So where do we go from here? Well, let's just jump right in and play the hits. Driverless cars, something that has already been around for many, many years just without the assistance of computers. Because for years, we have been driving while texting, putting on makeup, shaving, reading. Actually reading, that would be me. The other thing is that since driverless cars will be shared, most people won't own cars, and that means the DMV will go away. The DMV, I know what you're saying right now. There's no way this guy's going to stand up here and make a case for the DMV. Well, I don't know about you, but I do not want to live in a world where harsh fluorescent lights, endless lines, terrible forms to fill out, and disaffected, soulless bureaucrats remind me that I am pretty damn lucky not to work here. That is the real service they provide, the DMV. Come for the registration renewal. Stay for the satisfaction of knowing you made some pretty good life choices. Nobody will own their car in the future, and that means teenagers will not have a place to make out. So you know what that means? That means they will order driverless cars to do just that. I do not want to step into a vehicle and ask the question, why does this car smell like awkwardness, failure, and shame? If I want to ask that question, I'll walk into my own bedroom. So what else do we have to look forward to? That's right, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, yes. You know, there was a time when artificial intelligence was a joke. I mean, literally, a quip that you would hear at a cocktail party when somebody would bring it up in conversation. Artificial intelligence? The only real artificial intelligence is our American Congress. Well, it's not funny anymore. Stephen Hawking, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates have all gone on record expressing grave reservations about artificial intelligence. That's like Jesus, Moses, and Muhammad coming together and saying, guys, here's something we can all believe in. You might want to go with that, is all I'm saying. We are actually teaching machines how to think, how to understand our behavior, how to defend themselves, and even practice deception. What could possibly go wrong? The one thing is for sure, the creation always despises its creator, okay? The Titans rose up against the gods, Lucifer against Jehovah. And anybody who has a teenager has heard these words, I hate you and you're ruining my life, I hate you. Now just imagine that sentiment with a machine that can outthink you and is heavily armed. The result? Absolutely. What we need to do before we perfect artificial intelligence is perfect artificial emotions. That way, we can teach the robots or machines how to love us unconditionally so that when they figure out that the only real problem on this planet is us, instead of destroying us, which, by the way, is totally logical, they will find us adorable, like baby poop. Oh my God, I just love the way you destroy the planet. I can't stay mad at you. You're so cute. You're so cute. Can't talk about this without talking about robotics, okay? Remember when you thought robotics were cool? I remember when I thought robotics were cool until I figured out that they were going to take everybody's place from the delivery guy down to the heart surgeon. The one thing, though, that is very disappointing about robotics is the holy grail of robotics, and it hasn't even happened. I'm talking about the robot girlfriend. the dream of one lonely geek in a windowless basement who vowed one day, I am going to marry my creation. And there actually is a movement underway to stop this from happening for fear of exploitation. And I, for one, am against that movement. I believe we should have robot girlfriends. I just believe that they should come with a feminist protocol and artificial intelligence so she can take one look at that guy and go, I am too good for you, I'm leaving. And finally, I have to talk about bioengineering, an area of science that promises to end disease before it even begins, to help us live longer, fuller, healthier lives. And when you couple that with implantable hardware, you are looking at the next incarnation of human evolution. And all of that sounds great until you figure out where it's really going. One place, designer babies, where no matter where you are on the globe or what your ethnicity, babies will end up looking like that. That boy is surprised because he just found out both his parents are black. Can you imagine him at a cocktail party in 20 years? Yeah, both my parents are black. I mean, it's a little awkward at times, but you should see my credit rating. Impressive, very impressive. Now, all of this seems scary. And everybody in this room knows that it isn't. Technology isn't scary, never has been, and it never will be. What's scary is us and what we will do with technology. Will we allow it to expose our humanity, showing our true selves and reinforcing the fact that we are indeed our brother's keeper? Or will we allow it to reveal our deepest, darkest demons? The true question is not whether or not technology is scary. The true question is, how human are you? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a trained psychologist. She's a female leader who has led transformation efforts in many multinationals, pioneering a consolidated voice for females working in male-dominated industries. Today, Carolina Korth will speak to us about love. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you heard me right. Carolina Korth will speak to us about how our expectations of relationships may have changed with technology becoming more and more ubiquitous in the dating process. Now, let me find where the live streaming camera is. This has become very relevant to me because today I got a message from my boyfriend saying he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight. He said that he had a headache and that he was going to catch the live streaming of this. So all of a sudden, tonight's topic became especially relevant. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolina Korth, Is My Next Boyfriend a Machine? Love in the Age of Technology.
Exactly 1 year ago, I wrote an article that my next boyfriend would be a machine. And this article not only puzzled my boyfriend, but it also triggered quite a few discussions on social media and with my friends as to why would I replace a smart, gentle, loving, and pretty good-looking human being with a robot? In fact, my article was not the first one, and nor the last one written about it, and there are already quite a few books and movies dedicated to this topic. Especially recently, we seem to be truly fascinated by this idea that we could replace our partners by robots. Where is this fascination coming from? Is it because we are so fed up and frustrated with humans? Or the machines are becoming really so good and competitive? I have to admit that objectively comparing humans and machines is pretty brutal. But this is a kind of comparison we need to get used to in our day-to-day life, in our careers, but also in our relationships. And I observed that already now, majority of the machines I am dealing with know me better than my friends. When it comes to Netflix or Spotify recommendations, haven't you realized they are seemingly more accurate than the majority of the gifts I received for my last birthday? And that shouldn't surprise us, because machines are excellent listeners, always willing to learn something new about us, and they are getting accurate the more time we spend with them. Whereas we, as humans, just in opposite. We lose our initial curiosity about others, and we start using cognitive shortcuts and simply confirming our biases. Machines are excellent listeners because also their attention span is unlimited, whereas our attention span went down from 12 seconds in year 2000 to 8 seconds now. And with such a short attention span, I mean, carefully listening is hard. And carefully listening to our partners is even harder. Because after several years spent together, they simply don't deliver enough novelty for our dopamine-seeking brains. Machines are not only better listeners, they are also so much better entertainers. Really good in capturing our attention with some light, fun, and engaging content, sent in the very right moment. That's why we're all getting used to this staccato meeting, dates, and family reunions, constantly interrupted by text and notifications. Yeah, because no matter how exciting your story is, there is always something more exciting happening somewhere else. Ironically, machines brings us closer with those being far, but at the same time, they are doing a really good job in separating us from those living next to us or with us. Machines with such a good entertaining and listening skills seem to be pretty attractive partners because they offer a really good value for time spent together. But they also offer something else, the comforting reliability that humans hardly ever can. Humans are irrational, their feelings ambiguous, and as a result, relationships are messy, and return on initial emotional investment very hard to calculate. Although mystery is a part of love, according to many studies, we humans, we prefer clarity over mystery. Dating machine sounds good because machine doesn't have its own fears, biases, or commitment issues. Machine will never make you feel accountable nor uncomfortable with your actions. It is only a machine that can give you this drama-free relationship that so many guys on Tinder are asking for. But perhaps dating a machine sounds so good because technology did a very good job in making all humans look pretty imperfect. Although an average couple fights 200 times a year, we are constantly exposed to pictures of happy, smiling, good-looking couples spending their vacations in infinity pools and having avocado toast for breakfast. Needless to say, they are all loving their life. Those unrealistic images balloon our expectations, trigger our FOMO, and makes us feel dissatisfied, no matter how amazing our partner or our relationship is, because the most human reaction to achievement is not our feeling of satisfaction, but it's our craving for more.
And nowadays, more is just a swipe away. So, is the future of dating still human? Whenever I'm speaking about it with friends, they always bet on empathy. We celebrate it, being confident that empathy will make us irreplaceable. And yet, that's true. Humans have empathy, and machine, no matter how good it is, lack empathy. But we seem to overlook one thing. Very often in dating setup, whenever there is like some ambiguity, a vulnerability, humans lack empathy as well. Have you ever heard about behavior like ghosting, benching, or about someone that finished a relationship over WhatsApp because didn't have time or energy to do it face-to-face? I am convinced that empathy could be able to differentiate us from machines, but at the same time, I have to admit that very often my Alexa would be able to finish a relationship in a more respectful way that we very often do. And speaking about Alexa, isn't it pretty striking that we seem to give names and human qualities to objects and at the same time start treating each other as things? Our fascination, our idea that robot can replace the human tells more about us, our changing needs, than about technological advancement. When I wrote my article about this topic, I imagined a machine that will have access to all my personal data, including the historical data from my family, that it will be a machine that automatically learns based on my behaviors. This machine would know what makes me laugh, so it would never make a bad joke. This machine would know that it needs to make me jealous from time to time because I need it to commit more. This machine would know how and when to speak with me, and what are the non-negotiable topics we definitely need to agree on. And this relationship would be really amazing, because it would be all about me and satisfying my needs. Because our idea of replacing individual by a robot is our childish fantasy, that someone can be exactly as we want them to be, not as they are. It is yet another example. It is yet another example of this naive belief that technology can solve all the problems that we as humans are struggling with. Because strikingly enough, if you think about all the books and movies about this topic, the drama between human and a robot normally starts when the robot is becoming too human. Our current need for control push us towards machines and away from humans. And it also triggered the question if the future of dating is still human. And it also triggered the question what the future would look like. But don't you think it's such a wrong question to ask? As if everything was predetermined. Instead, we should ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want? Because if we don't know what we want, it's pretty unlikely that we'll get it. So perhaps it's a really high time to make sure that we know what kind of future of love, what kind of partners do we want to be and do we want to have. And in case we don't want to be replaced by robots, perhaps it's a high time that we start expecting less from technology and more from each other. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next and final speaker of the evening is an active member of the IE Madrid alumni community. He's an international design and innovation consultant, Marwan El Makjoub. He will talk to us today about how we prepare students for a world that doesn't exist yet, adding his very special perspective as a father. Ladies and gentlemen, education, preparing students for jobs that don't exist yet, Marwan El Makjoub.
Thank you for staying till the end to listen to me. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here today, but I must say it's actually quite a daunting task to come to TEDxIE of all places to talk about education in front of so many students, education professionals, and professors, particularly since I'm not a teacher. So why am I talking about this? Well, I am, as I'm sure many of you are, very passionate about education, but perhaps for slightly different reasons. First reason is that I absolutely hated school with a passion. By the time I left school, I felt like all the desire to learn and the curiosity had really been sapped out of me. But having said that, I thought that one of the best ways that I could affect positive change in the world would be by being a teacher, and actually that was my first job. But the reason that I'm really passionate about this subject is because now I have skin in the game. These are my kids. They are going to be joining the world of work in approximately 15 years' time. And what that means is that I need to start making decisions today about how I raise them and their education to prepare them for a world which is going to be very, very different tomorrow. But the message that I want to give you today is that even if you don't have children, and even if you believe that you have finished your formal education, actually the changing nature of work is going to affect every single one of you. So you really should be interested in how jobs are going to change into the future. I work for a design and innovation consultancy based here in Madrid, and we do a lot of work with international clients. And very often, that entails having to imagine the world as it might be in 10 or 15 years' time. Very often, our clients ask us questions like, what is the future of mobility? What is the future of banking? And recently, we had a client ask us, what is the future of work? Because they wanted us to help them design the future workplace. As part of that project, we did some research and we talked to managers in the US, EU, and Asia. And I've extracted some of the learnings from that project that I'd like to share with you today about what the future of work is going to look like. And I put it under three main headings: greater automation, increased flexibility, and purpose with a profit. So to begin with greater automation, I think that this is something that we hear a lot about, and certainly the people that we spoke to were of the opinion that already we're seeing greater automation in cognitive tasks, in non-routine tasks, by using data analytics. But this, in their opinion, was only going to increase clearly by the use of AI. And the data seemed to back this up. There was a study done by the University of Oxford where they estimated that in the next 10 to 20 years, 47% of jobs that exist today are at high risk of being completely automated. But even in the shorter term, a study was done by the World Economic Forum in 2018, and they estimated by 2022 that actually 42% of the work done, what they call task hours, will be done by a computer. And that means that 40% of the skills required to do a job last year will have changed by 2022, and that means that 54% of the workforce is going to need to be reskilled. And guess who that is? That's you guys, right? So the world of work is very much going to change. And I think that this is worrying from a couple of different aspects. One, that the HR leaders that the World Economic Forum spoke to, only half of them were confident in their organization's ability to prepare for the new world of work, because number one, they didn't know what the challenges were going to be. Second, due to a lack of resources. And third, due to a focus on short-term profitability. Next, if we look at increased flexibility, we hear about this a lot, that people want more and more to work in flexible workspaces and work in companies that are more flexible and allow them to work from anywhere. But this is going to have a number of knock-on effects. The first one is that there's going to be less job security, the people that we spoke to said that there's going to be something which they call enforced flexibility, that even in the professions, we're going to end up working in a kind of gig economy. Second, with more flexibility, that means that there's going to be more remote work. We're going to be more on video calls, and we're going to be hiring talent from anywhere around the world. But then how's that going to affect the third point, which is as business problems become more complex, we're going to require teams to collaborate together, and we're going to need people to be more creative. So in that, what we heard is that there's going to be less individual work in the future, that face-to-face communication skills are going to be absolutely key, and are going to be at a premium, in fact, and also that we're going to have to rethink the user experience of the office, not as a place that you go and work individually, but actually somewhere that helps you to collaborate. And the last point that I want to touch on under greater flexibility is thinking about the future of work. If we're able to intertwine our work and lives, actually what's going to happen is that we're going to end up always on. What one of the people that we spoke to called, rather than having a work-life balance, he has a work-work balance, where he tries to intertwine things that he enjoys into his work day, for example, meditating or listening to music. And the last point that I want to pick up from the report, from the research that we did, is profit with a purpose. More and more we heard from people saying that employees want to work for a company that sees them as an individual, sees them as a person, that is about more than profits, and is aligned with their personal values. So, if we believe that in the future work is going to be more automated, is going to be more flexible, and is going to be more focused on purpose, then how could we start thinking about redesigning education to prepare people for jobs that don't exist yet? What I've done is come up with 5 ideas or principles that I'd like you to take away and have discussions on and think more on. And those are these. Firstly, we need to nurture both sides of the brain. We need to think holistically. We need to embed purpose. We need to build resilience. And we also need to ignite curiosity. So firstly, in terms of nurturing both sides of the brain, as we see industries connect and collide more and more, what we are seeing is that companies need to come up with holistic solutions to these more complex business problems. And equally, what that means is that they're going to need people who bring not only hard skills or subject skills, but also soft skills or transferable skills. I certainly feel this every day because at our company, we pretty much only hire people who come from hybrid backgrounds. So, how many students do we have in the house today? A lot. Okay, so if you want to know how to future-proof yourself and think about what are the skills and the roles that are going to be most in demand, please get your notebooks out right now because this is the real concrete part of the presentation, okay? So I believe that those roles that are going to be most in demand in the short term and into the longer term, and those roles, firstly, that require an enhanced use of technology. So here we're talking about data and analytics, data science, software programmers, and things like e-commerce specialists. The second set of roles or skills will be those roles that require an understanding and a leveraging of emerging technologies. And these are the ones that we've heard a lot about today. So AI, machine learning, robotics, human-machine interface, blockchain, etc. But the last one, and perhaps the most important one, are those roles that leverage human skills. And when I talk about human skills, I'm talking about creativity, initiative, originality. And I believe that this is going to increase the demand for certain roles in sales, marketing, organizational development, training, and innovation. But clearly, if you want to future-proof yourself, the best way to do that is to combine as many of these as possible. Next, thinking holistically. Now, this is related to the previous point, but what I'd like to touch on here is something that the World Economic Forum says, that one of the problems that's actually holding us back in our education system and in our development is this false dichotomy that we have between the humanities on the one side and the sciences on the other. Recently, I found this tweet which I thought nicely summed up our problem. We've been told that we should be studying STEM, the humanities are worthless. And then suddenly we find ourselves in a situation where we have problems that technology alone cannot solve. So I really think that we need to take a holistic approach to the future problems that are going to be facing the world. That we need to have a renewed focus on principles and ethics, particularly with a focus on technology. Because yes, the fourth industrial revolution holds much promise, but it also holds many perils. For example, inequality and the potential for conflict. Next, embedding purpose. If we believe that the future of work is going to be more flexible, if we believe that in the future there's going to be little delineation between our life and work, isn't it important that we help students to find purpose in what they do and purpose in their work life? Rather than having them study just a hard subject skill and expect that in the future there's going to be a job waiting for them in a specific role. What I think we should be doing is helping students to find out what the big problem is that they want to solve and helping them to figure out how they can solve it. I think that this would have an absolutely transformative effect on motivation. The purpose of education shouldn't be just how to pass the next test. It should be making us aim higher. Next, building resilience. If we believe that the problems that we're going to be facing at work are going to be more complex in the future, doesn't that also then mean that we're more likely to fail and fail more often? If we believe that the world of work is going to become less secure and more flexible, doesn't that also mean that we're more likely to end up out of work at certain points in our career? I think it's one of the dirty little secrets of even one of the top institutions like IE that some of our top graduates have a lot of trouble finding work at certain points in their career. Shouldn't education take these issues head on and prepare people for these eventualities and also give them the mental tools to overcome adversity? There's this phrase in Japanese which I love, which is nanakorobi yaoki, which means fall down 7 times, get up 8 times. And this is something that I practice with my own children. Literally, when they fall over, I don't help them up. Now, this has a number of different effects. The first one being that I get a lot of dirty looks in the park, but the second one being that actually they tend not to cry when they fall over. And there have been a number of studies that suggest that our perception of pain is actually subjective, and the way that we react to pain is dependent more on how we've been preconditioned to it and other people's reaction to it, particularly our parents. So when my kids fall over, they tend to dust themselves off, get back up, and just carry on what they were doing. And I often tell my son, that we love mistakes, because through mistakes, that's how we learn. I'm very cognizant of the fact that's not how schools are set up, and that's not how the testing system's set up. But shouldn't we really celebrate in education when somebody learns from having made a mistake the first time? And equally, shouldn't we be giving students the mental tools to overcome hardships and build more resilience? The last point that I want to touch on today is igniting curiosity. So if we've established that jobs are going to be consistently changing in the future and that it's not enough to just learn a subject, and that really what we ought to be doing is to have students understand how to learn and also be giving them the incentive and the passion and the desire to learn. That's why igniting curiosity is so important. What we do with our kids is every time they ask a why question, we make a note of it, and then we get them to come up with a hypothesis of the answer, and then we help them find out what the real answer is, and we're going to make it into a book. And some of the why questions they asked, I'll put up here. I'll give you a moment to look over it. But what you'll notice is that there's no dichotomy here between the humanities and the sciences, is there? I mean, they're just as interested in the humanities, like politics, why do countries go to war? And social studies, why do we wear a ring when we get married? As they are in the sciences, like paleontology, why did the dinosaurs go extinct? Or something which seems to be quite an obsession with my daughter in biology is, why do we fart? In his famous TED Talk, Sir Ken Robinson asks the question whether education kills creativity. I would respectfully argue that probably the problem is one step before that actually schools kill curiosity, and creativity flows from curiosity. Rather than expecting students to reach the end of their education and know everything that they need to know for the world of work, I would argue that it's more important that we help students to build a holistic view, use both sides of the brain, be good communicators, build resilience, embed purpose in what they do, think about ethics, and also ignite curiosity. To paraphrase Socrates, wisdom begins in wonder. I wish you all the best of luck in your careers. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great sadness that we must announce that this event has come to an end.
Our jobs as hosts is made fairly easy by the gigantic team handling all the operations in the background. They are, of course, the ones that have to deal with the license acquisition, the venue booking, the ticket sales, the speaker curation. It's an incredible, incredible task and so much more.
And without this hardworking team, this event simply wouldn't be possible. So if I could please invite all the team to come to the stage. And could you please all put your hands together? Thank you. A hearty round of applause for a team that have worked so hard.
Woo! Once more, guys! Woo! I'm getting away. Are we taking a picture? Okay, I'm going to be really quick because I know all of you are really tired, but you have no idea how hard this entire big team has been working since February to get this event together. So, and honestly, I mean, I feel bad talking for all of them. They should all be giving individual speeches, but I'm so proud, and let's just give a big round of applause once again, guys. We did it!
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
It has been an absolute honor to be your host tonight.
And
good night.
Good night.